All right. Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us for the Fall River Historical Commission's hearing. It is Tuesday, February 21st, 2023. It is 6:04 p.m. and this meeting is being held virtually via Zoom and will be available. It's being recorded and will be available on YouTube as well as Fall River Government Television. Pursuant to the open meeting law, any person may make an audio or video recording of this public meeting or may transmit the meeting through any medium. Attendees are therefore advised that such recordings or transmissions are being made, whether perceived or unperceived, by those present and are deemed acknowledged and permissible. May I get a roll call, please, for the Historical Commission?
Connie Soul here.
Joyce Roderick's here.
Elizabeth DeBlock here.
Rick Mancini via Zoom.
And Jason Bouchard-Naraki here via Zoom. All right. We have two open seats. First up, item number one, a review and approval of the minutes from January 25th, 2023.
I make a motion to approve.
I'll second that motion.
All right, I have a motion by Connie and a second by Rick. May I get a roll call vote on that, please? Connie?
Connie Soul, yes.
Okay.
Rick Mancini, yes.
Joyce Roderick's yes.
Liz DeBlock, yes.
And Jason Bouchard-Naraki, yes. Okay. Thank you. Do we have any citizens' input for tonight? No. Okay. The first item up on notice of intent to demolish. This is item number 2. The address is 0 Vestal Street. It is a garage. I was reached out by Carrie in the licensing department. I did indicate that the property is not on the city's register of significant structures. So that was that. Item number 3 pertains to 145 Hanover Street. This is the Waldo Ames Buffington House, circa 1878. I did indicate that the property is on the city's register of significant structures. It is only on the city register. It is not on the national register, nor is it part of the 40C. And I believe we have Joe Pacheco here to present on 145 Hanover Street.
That is correct.
Thank you. If you wouldn't mind stating your name and address, please.
It's Joe Pacheco, 411 Columbia Street, Fall River.
Thank you. What is the intention to demolish? If you wouldn't mind talking a little bit about the project at hand.
Sure. You want me to go back to the beginning so I have a little bit of an explanation about how many minutes I have?
We haven't really set minutes in the past, but if whatever information we would need to.
Yeah, I'll be very brief. I'll try to. All right, we purchased this property on let me see, February 7, 2022. Even though the house itself, it was in good condition. However, we had no intentions of demolishing the home.
Okay.
Based on the square footage that we had, which is a little bit over 15,000 square feet, we could have 3 buildable lots. So, and when we divided, well, we'll build 2 houses and keep that one in place. The only issue is this house it needed 15, let me see precisely, let me see how many feet we needed. Well, we needed 15 feet from the street. I'm sorry, 13 feet. We only had 10. Therefore, we would need that 2 feet to be waived by the zoning of appeals.
Okay.
So we went before the zoning of appeals to waive that, do 2 feet there was a setback from not Hanover Street, was Maple Street. So on June 9th, we went before zoning of appeals to get those 2 feet waived, which is normally, it's a piece of cake that gets waived. It's a very small amount of feet to be waived. Meantime, at the meeting, there was about 10 neighbors that were opposed the waiving of those 2 feet. So they definitely oppose those 2 houses to be built in keeping that house there. So after the opposition from the neighbors, the whole board voted against a variance. I'm going to emphasize that the only thing we needed was 2 feet to be waived, which is a setback from Maple Street. After that was done, we get about 10 people or so from the neighborhood opposing that. Then we have all 5 members of zoning of appeals voting against. We have no alternative other than demolish the house, even though, by the way, it's a cute house and we wanted to keep it, even though it was in bad shape, but we had intentions of keeping. But after that, there was nothing else for us to do. And the only other option was, okay, we need to build 3 houses. So we have no option, but other option, but demolish this house. And that's where we are at. We submitted for demolition. We didn't know that was on the list of significant structures. We didn't know at the time, which, I feel bad now with this whole situation came about, but we have spent a tremendous amount of money doing all this work, all the engineering through zoning of appeals. Everybody opposed our proposal. What do I do? And that's where we are. It was not our decision to demolish. We had no intention of doing that. I'm going to be very clear, and this is all public record, and you could go back to the zoning of appeals meeting of June 9th, and you can see all information that I provided is all accurate.
Thank you. Do I have any questions from the board at all regarding this project?
I happen to see that meeting where that proposal was made and the responses. As a historic commission, that's a really charming looking home. That really is a nice looking piece of property and adds to the neighborhood. So I'm for leaving the house there. That's fine. What do you think a letter from the Historic Commission stating the value of keeping that kind of property, that style, that particular piece of property at its present location, and that the Historic Commission would rather see 2 new homes being built and leaving the existing home existing, as opposed to having it demolished and 3 new homes or modern homes being placed there? Do you think that type of a letter would be of assistance to you?
It would have been in the beginning when we did the proposal initially, which happened that you saw the meeting. But at this time, it's very complicated because we have spent a lot of money due to their decision. And we can't just go back and forth and just keep on spending money I agree with you. It's a cute house. And that's the reason we like to keep the house, because it's so cute and they fit in the neighborhood. And actually, I couldn't believe those neighbors were against the project when we were going to keep that house. And that house has been there over 100 years. I was appalled by that decision. But all those neighbors, as you probably remember, and plus the 5 votes from the board, it left us a little bit no option. And again, the amount that we have spent with engineers and everything else we've done up to this point, I don't think we want to go backwards.
It would appear to me that if you had a strong letter of support from the Historic Commission stating these facts, that if you presented to the planning board, just present again, reapply, it almost, in my opinion, would seem a lot less expensive than demolishing that piece of property. Is it worth the option of doing that?
All right, let me say this. Originally, I did say that the house, it's in bad condition. All right, the only thing we would save is the outside of the house. That was what we're gonna save, because like you said, and I agree with you, it's very nice and very cute. It's a very nice house from the outside, and we want to keep it. But to go backwards now, after spending all this money, I mean, originally, if that was done, possibly would be a possibility. But to have that many people against this project of keeping the house, I don't even believe they will go along with that, honestly. Because if you saw the meeting, you said you saw the meeting, right?
Mm-hmm, I did.
All right. And I'm going to mention this something, how one of the persons so vicious. The name of our company is Dream Homes, which I think is a cute name, right? Dream Homes. And we've been building for 30 years. And there was an individual that's in public record, it's recorded, called Nightmare Homes. That never happened to me in 30 years. I was like appalled by the fact that they called us Nightmare Homes, just the fact that we were doing what we're doing, we're submitting to keep the house in two more homes. I'm just giving the whole picture, and there's nothing that I'll make this up, because if you heard, you probably heard that same comment, which to me was very disturbing, and that's where we are at this point.
The property itself, so were there any thoughts as to possibly moving the house ever so much to, because I think from what I understand, the house is in the way of a potential subdivision or a new property line. Is there an option of moving the house over a little bit? Would that be financially, I mean, instead of building 3 new houses, you're now building just 2, but you're just moving the house over however much to
It
allow
would be
for the subdivision to occur?
Yeah, it would be extremely expensive to move that house. And again, the house is not a house that normally we like to work with all the homes, but because the specific home we're willing to do. But to move that 2 feet in, it would be, you would have to rebuild a whole new foundation, lift the house.
Right.
And again, it would never be a beautiful home on the inside because of the condition of the home.
Mhm.
And that's, people living inside the house,
Right.
not outside. And the outside has to do with the neighborhood. And unfortunately, the neighborhood was against.
Right.
And which I also feel bad for the board members that should be familiar with development for River, and all of them voted against.
Mhm.
I mean, it's a little bit,
Right. So because the property it was listed onto the city's register, it comes with it a 6-month demolition delay. And that allows the opportunity for the owners of any property that, if they're looking to demolish, to meet with us. And that happens prior to receiving a demolition permit. And this is exactly why, just to meet with you and to find out the options that you have done.
Mhm.
And, it's too bad that you can't go back to the zoning board with a letter from us, because we have written letters in support of various projects in the past. If it meant maintaining and keeping a historic structure in the city. And those are things that we have done in the past.
You said, I'm sorry, that was just a question. Keeping the property in the city, like move to a different location if someone was willing to take the property? Is that what you're saying?
If you're to maintain, or instead of tearing the house down, if you wanted to get that letter that would have allowed for the 2-foot variance, we have offered letters in the past in support of subdivisions if it meant keeping that structure intact, or at least standing, and not demolishing it. But as you have mentioned, you've already gone through the zoning board and so forth. I mean, I don't know if there's, as Rick had said, if there's a way to go back with a letter, but as you've said, you've gone through this already. Okay.
And we have the gentleman that witnessed the meeting, so, yeah. So I
Yeah.
tried. It's not like I didn't make an effort to keep it.
Right. Okay. Any other questions from the board at all regarding this?
So
Yeah,
you're
I had a
saying-
question. So I'm curious the reasoning that the neighbors gave for why they were opposed to the variance.
Why they were opposed?
Yeah, why were the neighbors opposed to the zoning board granting the variance?
Well, I think mostly because they were not really, they didn't do an investigation that we had the size lots to build 3 homes or to have 2 homes plus that existing home. Either way, we would have 3 new homes. That was the option. Obviously, they didn't do their homework to know that we have all those options. They just, you know, I've been doing this for a long time. Sometimes people just oppose what the heck of opposing. So if they had done their homework and they knew that we possibly could demolish the house and build 3 homes, I don't know if they would change their mind. But they make all kinds of accusations. They even said that, besides the one that I just mentioned earlier, that we should have done our homework because we purchased the property and now we're stuck with the property that I can build 3 homes, right? Which was incorrect also because they didn't do the homework. And that's the reason they opposed, just the fact that they was just they didn't want to build 3 homes there. They didn't want to see 3 homes there. That's basically what it was. The gentleman that witnessed the meeting probably can attest to that.
Is it possible that now public opinion could change, that the history regarding what the plan is known, and they probably didn't realize that 3 new homes were going to be built when they made the opposition?
I don't know. I mean, I didn't know what was gonna happen with this meeting. I just found out this week that we're gonna have this, I was in these situations. I don't know. I mean, either way, I have to wait 6 months no matter what the decision is, right? It appears that if I
Right.
go ahead and decide to demolish, I gotta wait 6 months. Am I correct?
That's correct, but I figured in the meantime, if you have to wait the 6 months, perhaps you could actually go back, explain the situation. They may not have realized it. Lots of times.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. I'm sorry. That's what I'm saying. If I have to wait 6 months, I might have time to maybe reach out to people and see if there's any possibility of doing anything else. Yeah, absolutely. I never close the doors. I always leave a door open. I'll try to look at all the possibilities and see if even possible. The only thing I don't want to do is spend more money, go before the zoning appeals again, spend another $4,000 or $5,000 and have these people opposing. I mean, your letter could be significant, but is it going to change everybody's mind? Don't forget, we had about 10 neighbors plus 5 members voting against. That's strong opposition. To change all these people's minds, I don't know if we're in that situation. But again, I can reach out to people. I can indicate maybe some members of zoning appeals.
It seems like it would be a huge factor if people realized the alternative was tearing down the house. But there were
Right.
going to be 3 houses there regardless. I mean, I can't assume what their opinions would be, but if I were in their position, I would rather see 1 existing house and 2 new houses instead of 3 new houses. So I think that would be a huge
I agree.
factor.
I agree with you completely.
Like sometimes we have to think about like the people that are opposing, it's their neighborhood, it's where they made their home. So they feel very vested, and the unknown is scary to them. And so they didn't have an opportunity to speak to you personally. So it was in a public meeting. So they obviously, people's emotions are high, and they want what's best for their neighborhood. So, and we all want to be good neighbors, whether, you're living in the properties you're going to build, or if you're going to sell them, we still want to be good neighbors and create good neighborhoods. And so I think, I know you're offended by their approach and what happened to you that day, and I'm sorry that it went down that way. But I think perhaps with a little bit of time now and with support from us, we're willing to write that letter. Maybe we could get somewhere differently. So you don't have to wait the full 6 months to stop building.
Again, this is, after 30 years, the first time I encountered this situation. I've done a lot of demolitions throughout the city. Again, we'll look at that option also. I'm not going to close the door on that option. We'll look into that. We'll look at the house again, see if there's any way we can keep the house and reach out to the board, reach out maybe. I mean, the way I was treated, I don't feel like reaching out to, I can reach out to the board, but not necessarily the neighbors, because I think I was treated unfairly because I've done a lot of good for the city. But again, I'll try. That's something I can do right now. I promise I can try.
So then, and that's what the 6-month demolition delay allows us to do, is to have, it gives us time to have a conversation we can, if you would like a letter of support to allow for a variance or in support of a variance, that's, we would love to see the house standing versus having it knocked down. It's been there since the 1870s. And that part of Hanover Street has gone through a lot of changes right up the block where Charlton Hospital is. So many houses were demolished. So it'd be a shame to see another house gone or in the neighborhood, especially that's stood there for so long. And adding 2 other houses to that neighborhood, it's already, especially across the street, those 2 lots, your particular property and then the one next door, those are the 2 that have the most space in terms of land. But then across the street, you have the neighborhood becomes quite dense. Even beyond that, down Maple Street and all the other streets, it becomes quite dense. So adding to the density, it's a city. I don't want to see all that green space gone, but then I also understand that we do, it's kind of sandwiched around all of this density, and if it means keeping a historic house, there has to be some flexibility, I think, in terms of preservation. And if it means going back to the zoning board and we can show some support with, maintaining, preserving the house, or at least keeping the house standing, and letting people know that, what your intentions are. That's what the 6 months, this is a prime example of why we have that delay.
Okay, I understand.
Hmm?
All right, well, I'll look into it. I didn't know how this meeting was gonna come out, so I'll look all my options. I definitely will look at this other option if there's a possibility of doing that.
Hmm?
And if I see that option is going to work out okay, maybe we can go that route. And if it does, then I'll reach out to Carrie at City Hall and
Sure.
and take it from there.
Perfect. Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And
Great.
good luck, and let's hope we
Thank
can
you.
add a lot to this to help you get through this.
All right, perfect. Thank you.
Welcome. Thank you.
Hey, Mr. Chairman, do we
Yes.
need a vote on that, please? Do we need a vote on the letter?
There's no,
We haven't officially said he's gonna look at his options and then reach back out to us.
Okay.
so this will be continued. All right, so. Next, item number 4, this is under correspondence. We received a request for a letter of support for Massachusetts historic tax credits from A Street, 1A Street LLC for Sagamore Mill number 3, located at 1A Street. We have a number of people here for this particular plan. If you wouldn't mind introducing yourselves and stating the company that you're affiliated with.
Kyle Tager. I am affiliated with 1A Street LLC, which is owns 1A Street, and I'm one of the owners.
Charles Agoris, also one of the owners of 1A Street LLC.
I'm Brian Lever from Epsilon. I'm assisting 1A Street.
Thank you.
And Adam Tager, I'm the third owner at 1A Street.
Thank you very much for joining tonight. If you wouldn't mind talking a little bit about the project that you're going to be doing over at the mill structure.
Brian, we're going to defer to you if that's okay.
That's perfectly fine. So actually, can I share my screen real quick?
I believe so. Alex, can he share a screen?
It looks like I can. So let me see if I can just.
Yeah, it should be open.
Thank you.
Okay. So you should all be seeing the building. This project is largely involves replacing the windows on the exterior, adding solar panels up on the roof, and mechanical equipment upgrades on the interior. It's basically it's an energy efficiency upgrade for the building, and it's being submitted for state historic tax credits through the Massachusetts Historical Commission, and it's also under review for federal historic tax credits through the National Park Service. As you can see on the building, there's a lot of different windows that have occurred over time. Some of them have been infilled or replaced, or infilled and replaced. And the idea is to try to go back to what we believe is likely the original pattern, which is actually kind of shown in this window here. And we would go through and replace them all pretty much throughout the entirety of the building back to the original pattern, along with adding some rooftop solar. You won't see the solar because it's actually going to be set back from the roof edge. So it's a kind of a light facelift project, which will, kind of bring back some of the original appearance of the building on the exterior while providing some energy efficiency for the owners and their tenants. As you're now familiar, as part of the state program for Massachusetts Historic Tax Credits, a letter of support from the local historical commission is required as part of the application. And the next application deadline is April 30th.
Okay. Thank you.
Straightforward.
Are there any questions from the board regarding project?
We did get the drawings. That was a very comprehensive package that you gave to us to review. Very impressive, by the way, and very detailed. And I'm all in favor. And if there is, I'm sure if there are other questions, go ahead. But I would like to make a proposal that we get a letter out of acceptance if there are no other questions. But I'm very impressed with the drawings and what you intend to do with that building. It was very, very detailed.
I second that motion, and I'm very excited about this project and what you're doing. That's great.
Excellent. Were there any other questions? Sorry. No. All right. So I have, thank you very much for presenting. We have a motion by Rick and a second by Connie in support of a letter for your tax credit application. Make it a roll call vote, please.
Connie Sol, yes.
Joyce Roderick, yes.
Elizabeth DeBlock, yes.
Rick Mancini, yes.
And Jason Bouchard-Araki, yes. I will have that letter to you by the end of the week. You're well ahead of the game for your tax credits, so you'll have that by the end of the week. And if there's any other questions or anything you need, please, you know how to reach me. So and the board as well.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
No, thank you
very
for
much.
restoring that building. Thank you.
Yes,
That's going
it's-
to be really a beautiful building when it's done.
Yeah, it's sorely
Thank
needed.
you.
Looking forward to it.
We appreciate the commission's support. Thank you.
Welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Okay. The next up was item number 5. I received correspondence from Public Archaeological Laboratory in regards to the Spencer Macomber Farm Cemetery at 1046 Blossom Road. I did send that around to the board for review. There's no action needed. It was just simply the burial ground Form E that is required by the Mass Historical Commission. The property is being surveyed. So we did review from the city at last month's meetings for the same property. This is the cemetery that's on the same parcel. So that was let's see. Next is item number 6. We received a request for a letter regarding a letter of support for a special use variance for 472 Walnut Street. This is being presented to the Fall River Zoning Board of Appeals, requested by Civitex. And we have Michael Keen from Civitex here. Hello, how are you tonight?
Good evening. How are you?
Good, thanks.
How's
How are you?
everyone? Good, good. So thank you for having me on. I appreciate it. And what we are looking to do, just as Jason mentioned, is relocate our office to 472 Walnut Street. So it's a property that was constructed back in around 1860, and it is on the State Historic Register as well as the National Register. And we purchased the property several years ago. And part of the reason why we purchased it, when we looked at it, Ann and I, about 20 years ago, we really loved the place, but didn't have the money to afford it back then. And then when it came up for sale recently, the last few years, we took another look at it, and a lot of it has still remained unchanged from when we saw it 20 years ago. And we decided to purchase it mainly with the intent to restore it. And back then, when we had met with a realtor, anybody that was looking at the house was looking to cut it up into apartments. And in some cases, there was one group that was looking to turn it into a group home. And it wasn't something that we wanted to see. There's a lot of interesting details inside the house, as well as the exterior. It has, wood windows, 6/6 wood windows, and on the interior are the original pocket shutters at all the windows on the Walnut Street side, which is kind of interesting. Not something that you see very often. So what we're looking to do, as Jason mentioned, is we're looking to relocate and get a letter of support. We don't have any immediate projects just yet. I think the first thing that we would be tackling or taking on would be more infrastructure, interior electrical upgrades, as well as mechanical. Nothing on the exterior for at least the first year. But anything we would do, of course, would be sensitive to the historic architecture of the residents.
And
So,
I'm sorry.
no, go ahead.
Oh, no, and it's currently zoned, I think it's zoned as apartments.
It's zoned in the A2 district, and it's directly across the street, also on Walnut Street, sharing the Walnut Street address is a dental office, so that the parking lot is on High Street. I think there are businesses just about on every corner of that intersection at Walnut and High Street, in that general area. So the house itself, going back to the 1980s, and when we saw it about 20 years ago, has operated as a business. Back in the 80s and 90s and I think early 2000, it functioned as a catering business. So the lower level, basement level, was sort of a walkout basement. There was a commercial kitchen, a full commercial kitchen, walk-in freezer. The range and the hood is gone now, but the upper floors are used as office spaces. And then the last owner, the previous owner, was using it as a bookkeeping business. So there is a history of business use, and there's not much impact that I think we would have to the area. Most of our work, we do site visits and leave the office. We don't have clients come to the office very often. But
So the full use or the intentional, the proposed use will be strictly for your office?
yes, yep.
Okay. Does anyone have any questions for Michael, for the
Okay,
project.
and I'm ready to make a motion to approve a letter of support.
Absolutely.
And I'll second that motion.
All right, so we have a motion by Connie and a second by Rick. This is for a letter of support for the zoning board. And may I get a roll call vote, please?
Elizabeth DeBlock, yes.
Joyce
Connie
Roberts,
Stoll,
yes.
Yes, yes, yes,
Yes.
yes. Connie.
And Rick Mancini, yes.
And Jason Bouchard Naraki, yes. Right, Michael, I'll have that letter sent out to you by the end of the week, so you can get rolling on that.
All right, I appreciate it.
My pleasure.
All right.
Thank you so much.
All right.
Nice going,
Thank-
Mike. We got another piece of property that's being saved.
Yeah, it was, I appreciate that, Rick. It was,
Can't wait to see it when it's finished.
Yes.
yeah, I will have you over, Joyce, that's for sure. So, yeah, it was, it was a decision we made, and it was just, it was solely done for, we didn't want to see it destroyed. And how many, I know you all can appreciate that, right? How many houses we've seen where the details are stripped and vinyl sided and that, so the intent when we bought it a few years ago is eventually to relocate our office. So now the time has come for us. So I appreciate it, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a
All
good
right.
weekend.
Have a good
And
night.
you too. Take care. Bye-bye.
So next on the list, item number 7, this is a letter of support for CPA funds for the Charles Cole House at 80 Belmont Street. It is being requested by the Greater Fall River Art Association. And I believe we have Dana Barnes here from the Art Association.
Yes.
Hi, Dana.
Hi, can you hear me? I'm on my phone. I have sitting with me here, the Vice President, Ron Gagnon, Coach Bear. He is also sitting here, and what we're looking for our second round of CPA funding. Our first round has been approved and we're working on our porch, but this is to take care of the needs of the window needs that we have. And we have quite a few windows in this big old building. Some of them need restoration. Some of them actually need all-out repair. So we're requesting money. We've met with Mike, who just was on the call. He's our architect of record. And we've met with him and they've come and we've sat down and came up with a plan to get some of these windows done. It's important for this building to have these windows either replaced or refurbished. The heating cost of this building is ridiculously crazy. And with all the windows that we have and all the needs that we have of these windows, that's why we've come for some funds. Plus, the architecture details of this house has 2 porthole windows. The original owner of this house was this salvage seaman, so it's very fitting that he had porthole windows in his property. So we're looking as part of this request to have those return to their natural beauty and like that. They are also done in stained glass. However, it's not leaded. The framing is wood in these windows, and they're rapidly deteriorating. So we're looking for some funds for this.
Are there any questions from the board for Dana?
I toured the property with Dana, and yet the windows do need some tender loving care.
Yes,
A lot
indeed.
of them can be repaired in place, but it does need tender loving care. No question about it.
Not sure where that interference is coming from. Okay, I don't have any. I'm sorry. Is this for all windows on the property, or are you doing in portions?
We're doing them in portions. We have the 3rd floor, the 2nd floor, and part of the 1st floor. The 3rd floor windows are the ones that are in the most, the 3rd floor and 2nd floor, they're the ones that are in the most dire need.
Okay.
of some repair, especially the third floor. That seems to be like everybody wants the first floor to look pretty because that's where our galleries are. So that gets all the loving care. Then the second floor where the majority of our art studios are, that gets loving care. And then on the third floor, because nobody feels like climbing the 3 flights of stairs, they sort of get delayed. So
Okay.
but they're the ones that are in most need. There will be other windows, like we have some basement windows that ultimately will need some care, and a few extra ones on the first floor, but we picked and chose the ones that really needed attention to help, so we can keep these costs of this heating down and keep, tighten it up a little bit. It's an old house, creaks and she groans like all of us who get old, and she just needs a little bit of a little care there.
Sure.
Dana, I have a question. So you're having the windows done. You said this is the second project. You had the porch, CPA funds for the porch. Has that started? Have you done the work there?
We have not yet started, but we are due to get the drawings from Mike sometime before the end of the month, and I know we're sort of almost there. I know they've been trying to get those done. So we are looking to start that in the spring. We've got people lined up. We just need the drawings. So we're waiting for Mike and the detailed drawings that we need for that project, because that's also a real important piece for us. We also have lined up a plumber to help do the lead line stuff that's coming. We have to get the city here to do their piece, and we have to get our piece. And Coach Bear here is been taking the lead on that, getting the subs sort of lined up. But like I said, we still need our finished drawings, and we're working on that. I know that they're getting that finished.
Okay. Cool. Any other questions at all for Dana? Can I get a motion? Are we ready to make a decision on the letter? Okay. We can get a motion, please.
I make a motion. I make a motion to support the Greater Art Association letter of support.
Thank you. So I have a motion by Joyce. Can I get a second?
I'll second the motion.
Thank you, Liz. All right, so I have a motion and a second. May I get a roll call vote, please, for a letter of support for the Art Association?
Bonnie Soul, yes.
Joyce Rodrigues. Yes.
Wow, we're getting some
Yeah, we're
awful.
getting-
Okay, Rick Mancini, yes, we're getting a lot of noise here.
Yeah, we are.
Elizabeth DeBlock, yes.
Okay, and Jason Bouchard-Naraki, yes. All right. Thank you, Dana. I will get that letter out to you this week.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. And I cordially invite any of you who haven't been into this old house to come and please come and check out. We're just a bunch of volunteers trying to do the best we can for this beautiful house, and we're honored to have you all support us, truly, honestly. So come anytime. We've got a new show going to open beginning of March. So I'll put a plug in for that. Come and see the art as it hangs in a beautiful old house.
It's free.
It's free.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Jason,
Have a good night.
before you
Good night.
go,
Yes.
are you related in any way to the Narakis from Fall River?
Yep, I'm married to them.
All right, I coached a young man many years ago at Durfee. Steve Naraki, that family?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Oh,
I
yes.
coached Brian in high school many years ago. Yeah.
That's
Awesome.
wonderful.
Thank you.
Pleasure to meet you.
Thank you so much. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Okay, have a good night.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. So next on the list, item number 8, this is a letter of support for CPA funds for the Dr. Isaac Fisk House, 263 Pine Street. requested by the Fall River Preservation Society. And I believe we have Jim Sewell and Alex Silva, both from the Preservation Society here tonight.
Hi, folks. Can you hear me?
Yes.
So I'm tardy bringing this letter of request forward, but I'm here. So I hope that isn't held against me too much. The Preservation Society has been working on the Dr. Fisk House for a few years. This is about like our fourth CPA project that we've done. This hasn't been approved yet. We're waiting for this year's hearing. This particular project is to repair windows, to replace the historic shutters and to add storm windows on the east and west facades of the house. We completed the north facade, which is the street facing, last year, and those were completed. Actually, we did it, that was a year and a half ago. Last fall, we finished the roof. And this year we're doing the east and west facades. We're specifically targeting the east and west facades because they're viewable from the street to public way. We do have trouble getting this work done from qualified contractors. So you'll see that we have kind of stuck with this one particular contractor when it comes to windows. There's another guy in New Bedford who is very good, but it's just really tough to get window work done. I do think that this guy's rates are very, very reasonable. We've been very comfortable with his competency. And if you've driven by the Fisk House, you see how the front facade came out. I think anyone would have trouble finding any criticism with it. A couple things I want to mention. Because the things that we're proud of at the Preservation Society is that, again, that the CPA requests that we have, they're for projects that are always within the public view. So we're not going to CPA for the rear facing windows because the CPA projects are supposed to be things that are viewable from the public way. Also, we're a 501c3 with nonprofit. But we do pay real estate taxes and we pay into the CPA fund. And as I said before, we do have other CPA projects, but they're all complete. Our last project was the roof, and that's completed. So we don't have any outstanding CPA projects.
All right. Excellent. Are there any questions from the board?
No, it's cut and dry. You know, we know you're doing a good restoration on there. It looks good. I'll make a motion if there's no other questions that we send a letter of support.
All right.
I'll second the
I'll
motion.
second that motion.
So we actually have, we have a motion by Rick and a second by Liz for a letter of support for the Preservation Society. May I get a roll call vote, please?
Connie Soul, I'm recusing myself. I'm a board member of the Preservation Society.
Rick Mancini,
Joyce
yes.
Roderick, board member, I support that letter of support.
Elizabeth DeBlock, yes.
And Jason Bouchard-Naraki, yes. All right, Jim, I'll have that letter over to you this week as well.
Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you very much.
Okay, have a good night, Jim.
All right.
Item number 9, letter of support for CPA funds. This is for the North Burial Ground gates requested by the City of Fall River Cemeteries Division. We have Chris Pirano. Am I pronouncing your last name correctly, Pirano?
Yes.
Okay, perfect.
Thank you for having me. We are also tardy in receiving a letter of support from this commission, and for that I apologize. But we have submitted an application for CPC funding to complete the vehicular and pedestrian gates at North Burial Ground on the North Main Street entrance. You might be familiar with the previous CPC funded project to restore the exterior of the gatehouse. That has been complete. Some of the funding for this project has been secured previously through other CPC funding applications. But as we started that work, the condition of the pillars and the ironwork gates were significantly more deteriorated than first expected. So to do it correctly the first time, we've had to go back to CPCs for some additional funding. Our request to them is for about $110,000 to finish that project. I will mention that since the completion of the gatehouse, we've seen a significant downturn in the amount of vandalism in the cemetery, which is great, both for the people who rest there and their families, but also for our operating budget from cleaning up some of the vandalism. And additionally, we have submitted an application to the state to help us plant new trees and remove some of the existing trees that are in bad condition. So we're making some concerted efforts to improve the aesthetic of that cemetery that's both on the National Historic Register.
Great, thank you. And what is the timeline for the work to commence on the gates, do you estimate?
So we would have to wait for the funding to be in place, but I think we can move pretty quickly. We have Civitech already lined up, who was the previous architect and is continuing to be the architect on this project. And we've already received some pricing and quotes from the company who did the initial portion of the project. One of the things we will have to tackle is it would have to go out for a public bid, but we would anticipate moving quickly.
Okay. Are there any questions from the board at all for this? No.
No, we had a very, as a representative of the CPC, we had a very detailed presentation by Chris on the gate and the rehabbing of that, both with photos and good identification. So I'll make a motion to get a letter of support out to Chris and his crew.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, so I have a motion by Rick and a second by Connie for a letter of support for the North Burial Ground gates. Can I get a roll call vote, please?
Connie Soul, yes.
Elizabeth DeBlock, yes.
Joyce Rodrigues, I support that letter of support.
And Rick Mancini, yes.
And Jason Bouchard-Naraki, yes. Chris, I'll send that letter. I'll get that letter for you this week as well.
Great.
Thank
you
very much.
all.
You're welcome.
Chris.
Okay. Let's see. The next item, we received an email from Michael LePage regarding historically insensitive alterations to the Richard Borden Mill #2 at 288 Plymouth Avenue. Let me just open that up. I'll read it real quick. I don't think we have Mr. LePage here to present. He writes, this was received on February 8th. Dear Fall River Historical Commission, have you seen the exterior remodel of the Richard Borden Mill #2, 288 Plymouth Avenue? How did this get approved? This out-of-town storage company completely destroyed the historical look of the mill by attaching panels to the exterior of the mill. Can this be changed? Kind regards, Mike LePage, former Fall River Historical Commission board member. So we did receive that. I did look into the listing. It is actually not on the it is not on the National Register of Historic Places. It is listed on the city's register, so that only really prevents allows for a 6-month demolition delay. But there's no preservation easements or anything of that nature on the structure. So this was, they didn't receive any tax credits or anything of that nature. I did reach back out to Mr. LePage and indicated that that they didn't receive any tax credits or CPA funds or anything of that nature. This was approved by the zoning board, and we don't have any purview over design over the design. The most we could have done, unfortunately, was just to write a letter indicating our concerns over the exterior treatment. I did write to Mr. LePage indicating that I believe the work does look to be reversible. There's a section of the building where the panels are still, they haven't installed all the panels, and it looks like there's some sort of metal tracks or so forth anchored to the side, but that's about it. The windows were all filled in. So were there any questions or concerns on that at all?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, were you able to get any information from the planning board on how this project was supposed to be developed?
No, I did not. This was approved. Ooh, I want to say, was it in 2021? I think was when the
Right,
property transferred, changed hands. And I'm not sure if the former chairperson had received any advance notice on that, but I did not reach out to planning. And it's unfortunate, but like I said, I believe the work does look reversible, but I mean, had the property been on the National Register, they would have at least been able to get some sort of tax credits to at least rehabilitate the exterior of the building. And there's only, I think, 2 or 3 mills in the city that have restrictions or preservation restrictions on them already. So. Any other questions or concerns on that at all?
No, I somewhere along in the next meeting or two, we should sit down and sort of look at these situations and see what kind of data we can gather and restructure so that some of these boards, when they meet, we could get I guess a little heads up that this is going to come about. It's very difficult to be reading the agenda of all of the boards in the city prior to their meeting, so that we can be prepared. So that should be something on the new business, or put it on the agenda, say for the next meeting or subsequent meetings, so that we can try and discuss this further and develop some sort of a plan if we can.
Okay.
Well, I agree with you, Greg. I don't know where all this interference is coming from, but there are other warehouses in Fall River that have been developed, and none of them look like this. I mean, there must be some criteria on business going into mills for the function of warehousing. And I think Rick, if you know a lot about the city of Fall River, I think it goes under the site review committee. I think it's the site review, which is a subcommittee of the planning board.
Right.
I do think that even though it's not on the National Historic listing, I do think that we should communicate, it's still a historical mill, and it stands out a great deal. And I do think we need to communicate, as you said, Rick, maybe at our next meeting, just take it up and discuss it a little bit more. We do need to have the zoning board be a little more sensitive to the historic nature of buildings when they're making approvals. When they said about it, they were going to do beautification to the exterior, that should have been more detailed, and they should have considered what their plan was. Other than that, I don't know what else to say, because I also saw that they weren't on there, and that they didn't get any tax credits. So
No, this is good for discussion. Perhaps our next meeting, we can something to look at. Okay. All right. Anything else on that before we move on? No. Okay. Next item, number 11, we received an email from Ruben Oliveira regarding 528 High Street. This is the Alfred Butterworth House. This is regarding a roof reconstruction from the fire in April 2022 that destroyed the roof of the structure. Ruben, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. Yeah, so attached are on that email are the plans. So basically the design is staying the same. I know there might have been some questions on the materials that were going to be used. The house was asphalt shingles before. We're not sure in which style of shingles we're going to go with, but the plan is to go back with the asphalt shingles. It's staying with the same flat roof on the peak. And then I don't know if there was any questions about like the siding and windows and whatnot.
No, I did mention to the board, and just so this is recorded as well. So because it's in the 40C, there is actually interestingly enough, there's an exclusion. It's marked as under exclusions 38-158 A7. The reconstruction substantially similar in exterior design of a building structure or exterior architectural feature damaged or destroyed by fire, storm, or other disaster, provided such reconstruction is begun within 1 year thereafter and carried forward with due diligence. So because the frame, the shape and scale and so forth of the roof is unchanged and you're keeping the flat roof that was there prior, we don't, that's excluding from our purview regarding that. I know we did have some questions on the material. And I believe you did mention before that you're keeping wood clapboards on the lower floor, shingles, I believe, on the upper floor as it's currently. Okay.
Yep. Yeah, it will be wood shingles and then clapboard on the first floor. So no composite as far as that. As far as trim and corbels, I do want to redo all the corbels. I know most of the house was missing corbels already. I found they're not wood, they're expanded PVC, but it is paintable. It actually needs to be painted. So it's just a cheaper alternative than going wood. I mean, to do the whole house.
But it's a very similar trim in nature. It's just the PVC.
Correct.
Yeah, that's fine.
So for the main corbels, they are changing maybe the size a little bit, because the ones that are there are 9x7, and they just, in my opinion, they just don't look symmetrical to what the eave of the house looks like. So we were going to go with 8x8, but other than that, they're keeping the same style. Yes.
Okay. All right, fine. And the windows, Ruben, was it?
So the windows, we looked into a couple of companies. We looked into Pella and we looked into Anderson. So Anderson 400 makes a wood clad. So it's a vinyl window, but it's got the wood grain, so it looks like it's wood. And we're gonna do 2/2, so the strip down the middle, and in black.
Okay. And they're going to be the same size windows?
Correct.
Reducing the size at all?
So we're changing a couple. I mean, I'll have more details once we get there. I mean, we're still kind of far from that. But on the right side of the house, on the left side, if you're looking at the house from the street, on the left side, there's a bay window there. That was done, I mean, I'm assuming somewhere in the 80s. We're looking to take that one out and put the original 2 windows on that wall.
Right.
So the same windows that are on the first floor in the front of the house, there used to be 2 on that side of on that room. So we're looking to put those 2 back.
Good, nice.
That's good.
Very nice.
I had a question regarding in the front of the house, there's that little stained glass window. Did that make it through the fire?
No, it's completely gone. So we're trying to find an antique window that will somewhat fit that size. If we can't, I found a company that does stained glass window to mimic the antique, but obviously it's not the antique. So that's going back as a stained glass window.
Okay. And do you know yet if you're able to, so we know that the gable in the front was kept for now. Do you know yet if that's able to be restructured or?
It kind of depends once we get there. Even if we have to reconstruct it, it's going to stay the same. I mean, I have the most confidence on the guy that I'm using. I mean, it's a close friend of mine, and he builds multi-million-dollar houses in, you know, Cohasset, and you know, so he's capable of reconstructing that. He says it would be easier to reconstruct it than to save it, just because so there was no fire blocks, obviously, and the structure of that is burnt. So well, I left it there for now, and I guess we'll cross that bridge once we get there.
Sure.
Okay.
Yes, Rick.
I
No,
have a question. So in regards to the shingles, the asphalt shingles, are you going with asphalt architectural styles shingles? So they mimic?
Right, I haven't, we haven't looked into that yet. We'll see. I mean, we're open to, I mean, we'll shop around and we'll see the look versus pricing of it, and we'll make that decision.
Great. So I believe you received a permit to remove the roof, correct? But you haven't received a permit to rebuild the roof.
No, so the permit is to go to reconstruct the home. So with no changes to the roof, I can proceed forward. But I will, before proceeding forward, I will present them with the plans and make sure Glenn and, you know, they're okay with it.
Okay, and we can certainly let them know that, you know, you met with us and regarding the frame and the scale, the shape of the roof and so forth, and you know, contingent on the roof material and so forth. And then once you have an idea for the windows too, you know, we can well, actually, would that fall under the permit too as well for the windows? Or it's for the whole?
Yeah, I believe so, yes.
Okay.
I would make a motion that we get a letter to Ruben to present to Glenn, so that Glenn knows that we're behind this project and that it's being done and in a proper manner.
Before we make a motion as well, I know there was, Ruben, I know you're going through hell and back with National Grid right now on the electric meter. Currently it's in the basement, from what we understand. And so National Grid unfortunately is not, they're giving you headaches, they're giving us headaches and trying to keep the meter in the basement. From what I was told from, I think it was Aaron Roy from National Grid, because it's an upgrade, you're upgrading the service to the house. Their codes prohibit the meters remaining in the basement. So they need the meter to go onto the exterior of the house. Now, I believe we're going to try to have a conversation with National Grid to figure out if that's the final decision on that. If it needs to go onto the exterior of the house, is there an option that it can go onto the side, if like as a worst case scenario?
For me, yes, on the driveway side, the service goes right to the corner of the house, like the front and the driveway side. If it has to go on that driveway side of the house, I'm okay with that.
There's a meeting tomorrow, Ruben, at 2:00.
Mhm.
You're all set? All right. Uh, It would be advantageous if you had your electrical contractor there also, if he can make.
Well, one, it's kind of last minute and also last time, if
Yeah.
on Friday at 1:00, no one showed up. So I mean, it's tough, you know, I mean,
Sure.
I can
Okay.
probably make time to be there. I'm not sure if I can have the contractor there.
All right.
I mean, the contractor just needs to be told what to do. I mean,
Mhm.
he'll put it in the basement, he'll put it on the side, he'll put it in the front lawn. Yeah, I mean, you know,
Mhm.
he's really not a decision maker in this case. So I don't see the need of him, you know, being there.
Mhm.
Is the back of the house not an option at all? Is that,
Well, I would have to dig up the whole driveway. So,
oh,
yeah.
Okay, so, because I believe, yeah, so Rick, you're meeting with National Grid, at least regarding that, but,
And the electrical inspector and Ruben and myself and whomever else, Connie, Jason,
we can't have more than,
Elizabeth, whoever
three of
wants
us
to
there.
show up.
Yeah, we cannot have more than, three of
Three.
us, two.
Three of us.
Yeah, four makes a quorum. So, and this is a site visit that we are accustomed to doing. All right, so, should we would have to agree as a board, though, if if National Grid will not back down on this. If the meter has to go on the exterior of the house, if it's fine going onto the driveway side.
I think tomorrow we'll present, the utility company doesn't make laws in that instance, and all it is a requirement that they call a requirement. And the decision-making is truly up to the authority having or enforcing the code, the AHJ. So I'm going to make some suggestions tomorrow. And then the decision will be Ruben, the electrical inspector, and Aaron. The three of them will kibitz, speak a little bit and make a decision right then and there. That's not going to be the historic commission or presentation. We're just going to present as to an alternative. I think Jim is looking.
Yeah,
Yes,
we
Jim.
have a question from Jim.
I have to put some input. I apologize. We own a 4-family on June Street, and we just upgraded the electric 4 months ago. And they kept the meters in the cellar. All they did was dug a hole in front of the house and ran the new lines right into the foundation. So I don't know if maybe someone's given bad information about not being able to keep the meters in this basement or not. But I mean, they just did a
If you
major.
read the requirements of the utility company, they have the decision. They can make the decision to leave the meters in the house,
Yeah,
put them outside. And I tried to get the representative from the meter department there. And I guess Aaron said he doesn't have, I don't know, the time or can make time to be there.
all
But,
right. That stinks.
They can make the decision. It is, again, the authority enforcing the code is the electrical inspector, it's the building department. And the building falls under the National Electrical Code. The meter itself is a device that's only there to help the utility company monitor how much power is being used. And what they do is they'll say, look, we're not going to put a meter in there if it's not outside. I mean, they're holding you hostage in a sense. And it's in their criteria that they recommend the meter going outside. But it also makes a statement in their paperwork that they can make the decision and allow it to go inside the building. So whomever you were speaking to was gracious enough to say, okay, you're right, Jim, let's tie it and put, put the upgrade and let's leave the meters inside the building. In this case, we're gonna find out if we can get that done tomorrow.
Okay. Jim, thank you for that. It's,
Did National Grid do that? Like a couple of months ago, right?
well, we'll find out tomorrow regarding that. As far as everything else goes, regarding the restoration, rebuilding of the house, do we have everyone in agreement with, aside from the electric meter, with everything else that Mr. Oliveira is proposing?
Yes.
Yes, I do. I'm in agreement.
All right, can we get a motion for letter from the Historical Commission?
I'll make that motion to get a letter from the Historical Commission to assist in the reconstruction of the property.
I'll second that motion.
Thank you. All right, I have a motion by Rick and a second by Connie. May I get a roll call vote, please?
Connie Soul, yes.
Elizabeth DeBlock, yes.
Joyce, you're on mute.
Rick Mancini, yes.
Joyce, you're on mute. Did you hear me? Oh, Joyce, you're on mute. Can you hear me? Joyce? Joyce, unmute your computer, please.
I think I'm
There you go.
unmuted.
Oh, there you go. What is your vote for a letter of support for Ruben Oliveira?
Yeah, I was voting for that letter for Ruben.
Thank you. All right, and Jason Bouchard Naroki, yes. Ruben, thank you very much for your patience. I will get that letter to you so that can go with the rest of your paperwork regarding the house. And if you have any questions at all, please let me know.
All right, we'll do. I'll make arrangements to be there tomorrow. Will you be there, or will it just be Rick?
It'll be Rick and I at 2 o'clock.
All right, I'll be there. And so tomorrow the decision will be made where the meters is going. If it turns out to be the side of the house, I mean, do we have to wait for another meeting and
No.
run that by the board, or
No.
will that be a final decision?
Yeah, we can make it, because it's, the board is in agreement that if it needs to go onto the driveway, it can go into the driveway, but we're gonna work with National Grid to keep it in the basement.
I mean, I would rather have it inside too. So I mean, worst case scenario would be outside. So.
Perfect. Okay.
So, all right,
Great.
sounds good.
Thank
I'll
you so
see you
much.
tomorrow.
Yes,
All right,
you have a
thank you.
good night.
All right,
Good night.
good night.
Under new business, we have none. Old business, item 12, an update on the open meeting law training. And I believe I got Connie's confirmation. So I believe everyone is all caught up on open meeting law training. So that is that. In fact, I'll email Patrick Higgins, who had filed a complaint, just let him know that we are all updated. Item number 13, this is an update on the design guidelines. So we received the final set, what we thought were the final set. There are a number of errors in it. I'm not sure how that got past us. I have been.
Just for the record, it didn't get past me. I found one.
But there's a few, there's some edits since we merged with the Historic District Commission, there are some edits because now it's worded as if it was for the Historic District Commission. So we just had to have that change. That's a big major change to the Historical Commission. And there's a number of other edits as well. I know Jim and Alex with the Preservation Society have been working on that. Do you have anything to add regarding that at all, or?
All the credit goes to Alex. I didn't do any of it.
Okay.
Yeah, it's nothing major, just like some typos and you know, just little grammar things that only an English major probably would pick up on. But the titles for Historic District Commission and as I think emailed or texted the links to would just get a look at to make sure those are exist in perpetuity and things like that.
Perfect. Yeah, so the once we have all those edits, we'll reach out to Dominique to have those corrected so we can get a corrected version updated, and then from there it'll be a matter of just I initially had sent in a request to have copies printed, and then all the edits came up, and so I had that halted. But good to know. I was not aware that there was a printing press of some sort at Government Center. So I think the initial order was for 75, I believe. I didn't want to push the envelope too much. So that's on hold right now. Once we have the final set, then I'll send that over to Carrie. And Chris Pirano, who was here earlier, is awaiting the information so we can get that put onto the Historical Commission's website on the city's website. So we'll have that. But the printed copies were to go to the homeowners in the 40C, all the pertinent departments at City Hall, and as well as the board, and then some extras. So yeah, hopefully we'll have that done soonish. We can get that taken care of. So that's that on the design guidelines. Any questions on that at all? No. Anything for open discussion? We had a long meeting tonight. Nothing for open discussion. All right. All right. So the next meeting will be held on Tuesday, March 21st, 2023. We are allowed to go virtual until March 30th, unless that is changed by the governor. But as of now, if we need to go virtual again next month, we have the ability to do that until the 30th. So the time is 7:26. May I get a motion to adjourn?
I'll motion to adjourn.
I'll second that. I'll second that motion.
Thank you, Joyce. So I have a motion by Connie and a second by Joyce to adjourn. May I get a roll call vote, please?
Connie Soul, yes.
Rick
Joyce
Mancini,
Rodrick, yes.
Elizabeth DeBlock, yes.
And Jason Bouchard-Naraki, yes. Thank you very much, everyone, and have a great night.
everyone have a good evening.
You too.
Good night.